there is a tremendous amount of energy out there that it became very clear to me after I got my 100th phone call for signs. I've been delivering signs and gathering signs and getting signs out. Yesterday, Carol and I went up to, well, we ended up in Whitehall, but we hit, what did we hit? Argyle, what other towns? I can't remember, but anyway, we went north. And on the way back, I put in some signs. I put in signs along a couple of roads in Greenwich. My idea is you get every sign out there, put it at the intersection, put them wherever it's legal to put them. But there is a lot of energy. As everyone knows, we've been saying this over and over again, it's the most important election of a lifetime. What is really at stake here is our Constitution, the rule of law, and equal justice under the law and equality for people. That's really what's at stake here. So once in a couple of weeks, what we're going to need to do is really bust our butts to get out the vote. And I think a lot of people are going to be willing to do that. So that's really, I think, enough from me. I'd like to get started because I'd like to hear from the candidates, and I'm sure everybody else would too. So the one thing you're going to be muted, as Alan said, throughout the time that the candidates are talking. We have questions. Questions should be addressed through the chat, which is down at the bottom of the page. It says chat. You can click on that and you can send a question to chat. We did this once before and it went very well, so I have no reason to believe it won't go well again tonight. Alan, is there anything else I need to mention?
I think we're good to go, so
okay,
why don't you move on?
Okay. Well, let's get started. Kimberly Davis is our first speaker. Kimberly is running for the Senate seat in the New York State Senate District 45. I don't know if I should do this or not, but I tell people lots of times that that's the seat that Betty Little is retiring from. I do that to give them a sense of what that seat is all about. And Kimberly is going to go first. And so Kimberly, I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here again. It's great to see everybody and the new faces as well. I will probably be shorter than 5 minutes because I'd rather answer questions. So I am the Clinton County Treasurer. I have been for 7 years. And one of the reasons that I am running is it's very important that we have somebody with a financial background in Albany. We are a very taxed state. Most people don't mind paying taxes for the services that we have, but we really need to spend our money wisely, and especially with the huge budget gap that we are going to face. We cannot do it on the backs of property tax owners or payers alone. And so I think that's, a major reason why people should vote me in. Another reason is that I'm a very hard worker. I come from a union household. We had a roof over our head, but not much else. And so I learned very early on that if you wanted something, you had to work for it. I worked 2 jobs most of my life. And right now I'm working 2 jobs. I'm working my day as the county treasurer in Clinton County. And then nights and weekends are spent doing the work of the campaign. It's been great. As I was talking about with Melissa earlier, the 2.5 hours down to some of the most southern areas of Washington County. At least now with Zoom, we get to do this where we, don't have to travel as much, but we still are out there. We are doing no contact literature drops in each of the counties. I have 6 counties that I cover. And so we want to make sure that I grew up in a rural area, and I want to make sure people don't think that we're just concentrating on the 2 population centers of Plattsburgh and Glens Falls. I've been to Granville and Salem and Greenwich and Hudson Falls, Fort Edward, all over Washington County in my travels. And it's really important that people feel that they have a representative who hears them. One of the other reasons I'm running, and then I'll end, is there's a difference between being political and being partisan. It's been a political journey for me to be here, both as treasurer and as a former assessor, but I'm not partisan, and we are, I think, all tired of hearing and seeing, as Tedra was talking about earlier, the just incredible negativity that we see both in Washington, D.C. and in Albany. My opponent, if you go on his Facebook page, at least a third, if not half of his posts are incredibly partisan. You're supposed to be representing all people, not just the people who got you elected. And when you spend a lot of time demonizing a third of your constituents, how does that make those people feel comfortable coming into you with a problem that they need help with? So I don't care if a Republican or a Democrat is coming to me with a bill, tell me how we're going to pay for it, and then we'll sit down and have a discussion, because that's really what is lacking, is the discussion, the cow trading, the give a little, take a little, and we get the work done. So that is, one of the reasons that I chose to run for this seat, and I hope that I can answer your questions and we can have a dialogue.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's always good to hear you. Our next candidate who is going to be speaking is Tedra, and she is running in New York 21, the congressional district that covers 12 counties. So Tedra, you are on.
All right. Well, thank you for organizing this again. And thank you everyone for being here on this beautiful night. I don't know about what it's like down there, and I'm in St. Lawrence County, but tonight I got out of the office and it was so almost balmy. So just felt like a really beautiful fall gift. I'm Tedra Cobb, and as always, I'm so happy to be with you. I'm going to cut to the chase. I am in this race because of healthcare. I was a county legislator. Just so you know, I graduated from SUNY Potsdam over 30 years ago. So I've been in this community for more than 30 years, graduated from SUNY Potsdam, married my husband, Scott, and together we raised our 2 children in Canton. I have dedicated my life to public service. I've been a volunteer firefighter, a healthcare advocate, a mom, and an educator. In the St. Lawrence County Legislature, worked with colleagues to pass a tough ethics law, lower the cost of prescription drugs, and help seniors with home heating assistance. So done a whole lot of work, but the long and short is in 2010, I was done with the legislature, and I never thought that I would run for office again. A career in politics was not what I envisioned for myself. Fast forward to 2015. My daughter, Ada, lost the ability to walk and to stand, and she needed to have emergency back surgery. As you can imagine, it was absolutely terrifying, but we were lucky because I had a job that had insurance, so Ada got the surgery that she needed. A month later, I lost my job and we lost our insurance. So in 2017, when Elise Stefanik voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act and to kick 64,000 people off their insurance and to gut protections for people with pre-existing conditions like Ada, that was it. I knew I had to run. I know what it's like to fight for your family. I know what it's like to fight for your children, and I'm gonna fight for North Country families. Here we are mourning the loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and the loss is deep, right? The loss is about her fight for equality, her fight for justice, her fight for people who are differently abled, her fight to make sure that everyone, male and female, have equal pay and are able to care for their families. Elise Stefanik has done everything that she can in Washington to take our healthcare away. She has spent her career working on that. And in front of the Supreme Court, we will see the taxpayer-funded lawsuit to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump has put that forward. Elise Stefanik has voted for you and me to pay for a lawsuit that will discriminate against us and that will take our health care away. So healthcare is on the ballot. There are many other things on the ballot. The environment, Social Security, Medicare is on the ballot. And we can talk about all of those, and I want to make sure we get to your questions. But you're right, Sarah. People are feeling the pressure. They're feeling the weight. We now have seen 200,000 people. 200,000 people have lost their lives due to COVID. Millions are unemployed. Millions are infected. And we still have no testing and no contact tracing. We still have no PPE. We have no consistent or realistic or consistent federal response to this pandemic. It changes every day. Instead of putting people first and public health first, this administration has put politics first. And Elise Stefanik is part of that. And they all need to be held accountable on election day. So again, I thank you so much. I look forward to your questions, and I'm going to pass it back to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Tedra. And now we are moving to Carrie Woerner. Carrie is running for re-election in the Assembly District, the 113th. And represents, I think, 8 towns in Washington County. So Carrie, you're on.
Thank you so much. It is great to be here. Thank you to the Washington County Democrats for creating this forum in which we can share our views, take your questions, make sure that you get all of your concerns addressed. You know, during the last 6 months that we've been in the center of this pandemic, our communities have really pulled together. And I know that so many of you have found ways to give back to your community to help those in need. And it has been a privilege to roll up my sleeves and work beside you at food distribution sites and reviving my somewhat rusty sewing skills to join you in making masks for the folks who weren't able to get access to PPE. In addition to doing the work to provide individual assistance, I've really focused on helping businesses get themselves back underway. So we've really advocated for the reopening of bowling alleys, of gyms, of estheticians. We're focused on restaurants right now and on expanding their capacity for indoor dining so that they can survive the winter. You know, small business has always been the engine in our small towns, and making sure that people are back to work, the businesses are open and people are back to work, I think is what we need at this point to really strengthen our economy and strengthen our state. And get ourselves back on track. Over the last 6 years, my focus has been on small business and on recognizing that from Easton and Greenwich up to Hartford, it is small businesses that really make up the economy in Washington County and similarly in Saratoga County. And so what you find when you look at the work that I've done is I've really focused on on different industries. You know, it is, as Kimberly mentioned, it's expensive to be in New York. It's expensive to do business in New York. And everybody who runs a small business says the same thing. But how it's expensive varies by type of business. And so what I've tried to do is be very focused on individual categories of businesses and what can we do to make it easier for them. So we've done that for farms and U-Pick operations. We've done it for massage therapists. We've done it for insurance agents. We're working on salons and monument dealers. This is my approach, is to just dig in and be focused on what moves the needle in a given industry and just make it that much easier for those businesses to start and thrive here in New York State. I also know that one of the things that we have going for us in New York State is that we have a great workforce, and that's a function of the terrific schools that we have, both our K through 12 schools, but also our community colleges and our university system. So it's been a passion of mine to both make sure that we have proper funding for all of those institutions, and certainly going into this year and beyond with the financial problems the state is having, it's going to be harder than ever to stay focused on making sure that our schools have the money that they need to provide a solid education. But I've also focused on things like expanding the FFA program, because the FFA program, whether you go into farming or not, provides a really solid grounding in things like business management and statistics and environment early on, then those lessons get carried through into higher education experiences. I've focused on making sure that our P-TECH programs and the early college high schools that really give young people an opportunity to focus in high school on something they're passionate about, earn credits towards their college degree while they're still in high school. And focusing on the trades and career and technical education, because not every child has an interest in going into a four-year school, but there's tremendous opportunities with the building trades through apprenticeships, and really focusing on what our CTE programs and the BOCES can do to set those young people up for success in the trades going forward, because our workforce is what attracts people to New York. It's part of what balances the scales for New York State. So as I think about being reelected for next year, and I am so grateful for all of your support. You can count on me to continue to focus on things like how do we make our small businesses stronger? How do we make opportunities for young people? And how do we make sure that our schools are well funded, that we have the infrastructure for a modern society like broadband throughout our communities, because that's what we need in order for our businesses and our schools to function properly. Thank you so much for your support, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Carrie. At this point, and thank you everybody for your presentations. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Alan. We'll get into the Q&A, and so I will do that. Alan, you're on.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Thank you for those great introductions, all of the candidates. We do have several questions that have come in through chat and several that have come in through some email as well. So we've tried to ask folks, well, we did ask folks to try to focus your questions toward an individual candidate, but some work that way and some don't. So I'm going to actually start off with a question that should go to all three candidates. The question is, we've gotten lots of requests for signs. How can I get them? So we'll start with Kimberly.
Very easy. Sarah Eidelman or Carol Kerr. Both of those ladies always have a good supply of my signs, at least. When we have people also throughout the county. So they're available. So thank you for asking for them. First request is to have them in yards, and then certainly major intersections away from the galloping of signs that happens, but I'll let the other two ladies answer that as well.
Okay, great. And before I go to the others, I just have to tell you really quickly that Mary Lou and I have been up in Hudson Falls the last couple of days doing literature drops for Kimberly. And we've also got a whole bunch of signs in our trunk, so you can call me too. So.
And Mary Silich has signs.
So Kimberly's signs are out there. Tedra.
Okie dokie. So I hope you have our signs. We do have more coming. Our signs have been getting out there. They are also being taken. So please, on our part, please don't put them in the crossroads. Only put them in a yard. People are walking into yards and they're taking them. So if somebody lives near a road and they say, you know, somebody took my last sign, and you say, go ahead, you can have another sign. But if they can put it in a window, that would be great, because we can't keep buying signs because we can't keep getting signs. We're not going to be able to keep doing that. So I think, Sarah, you still have some. We will be getting more out. No, she's out.
Gone.
Okay. Well, we have more signs coming this week, and we'll be getting more signs out. Thank you for that. And again, you can tell if they're gone, they're out there. So yeah, make sure that they go in a yard. And the other thing for us, you know, for me, I always feel like a sign, especially in an independent or Republican yard, means that it's a vote, right? It's that's important. So.
Okay, thank you. Carrie.
So as others have said, Sarah has signs for me and Carol has signs. But if you want to give us if you want to send your address to Carrie Woerner 2020 at gmail.com, we will get that list to Sarah and Carol and the signs that go with it, so that they can do the delivery.
Great, thank you very much. All right, this is a question for our two state candidates, for Kimberly and for Claudia. So I'm going to start with
Carrie?
Kimberly and then ask Carrie. I'm sorry, seeing the C and Carrie's. Very sorry. For Kimberly and Carrie, start with Kimberly. What action or policy should our state legislature adopt to limit future police abuse? Timely question.
They had, there's been obviously 2 rounds of police reform. Some of them that came through this last time were good. I will say that just to talk a little bit about the history of it, my opponent voted to allow racial profiling, which to me is unconscionable, and also voted that an officer did not have to report the discharge of their firearm. If somebody's shooting a deadly weapon, that should be reported. So there's certainly, also we need to look at funding. I am not a proponent of defunding the police, and I think that, oh, what's that? Can you hear me, Alan?
I think it was just a noise there, Kimberly.
Okay. I think defunding the police is just a, kind of boogie word. I don't know that anyone in our area is seriously talking about that. What we can talk about is giving our police departments the resources they actually need for training. Nationally, 1 out of 5 calls is a mental health or an addiction issue. It is not a violence issue. And so in talking to my chief of police here, they would very much like some mental health professionals, not necessarily to be the one going out on a call, but our officers see things that none of us would ever in our lives want to see. They experience things with children that none of us should ever see. And so when they get back to the station, there is no one for them to talk to. And I presumed that there was at least someone locally that they could talk to. And I was shocked when I heard that, no, we're given a 1-800 number. That's, just not acceptable. So mental health professionals could certainly help both with our officers and with the public. We've had a great program here in Plattsburgh. We opened a community center that has both a police officer and a mental health professional. And it's also just building community with our police, so that we've done coloring with a cop, coffee with a cop, so that people can have a relationship, establish a relationship with police officers before it comes to an emergency situation that can be tense and terrifying. So those are just some of the ways I think that we can address what's going on.
Great. Carrie, you want to take that one on?
Sure. So I would first say that I think the governor's directive that every community participate, or that every police department in every community hold a community forum to begin to gather input from the community on what policies should be in place in that community with respect to law enforcement is a very smart thing to have done. And I hope that in all of the communities that I represent, that process is underway, and that before April of next year, every agency will have done that and given everybody an opportunity to hear what the policies are in that particular department, and to have an opportunity to be in dialogue with the leadership in that law enforcement agency, to talk about what the community thinks is necessary and appropriate in that community. So one, I would just encourage everyone to be on the lookout for those events and to participate. Great. I also think that when we talk about the law enforcement agencies, there's a lot of differences between them. And so to the degree that we can encourage accreditation by every agency, that I think starts to get consistency from agency to agency. The accreditation process is very thorough and comprehensive, and really requires that the agency have, I think, 136 different policies related to different aspects of law enforcement, and they have to demonstrate that they have them, people are trained on them, they're actually using them, and then they have to recertify every 5 years. So I think that accreditation process is a very positive one, and I've got a piece of legislation that we're working on to create incentives for agencies to go through that accreditation process, and make them that having the accreditation would give them higher priority for grant dollars. So I think that's an appropriate thing. And then I think I would just echo what Kimberly said, which is this is about having a good relationship between the community and the law enforcement agencies. And I think we are very fortunate in Washington County and in Saratoga County that we do have agencies that do community policing, and they, and they're well known, and they're in the community, and they are at community events. The whole Hometown versus Heroin initiative was really a collaboration between law enforcement, between the district attorneys, between the mental health professionals, between the local communities, to say we're going to step up together and address this problem, not as a criminal justice issue, but as a public health issue. And I think that's just a fine example of how we do things in Washington County, how we do things in Saratoga County. And I frankly think other places could learn from us. But that I think is something we need to watch and make sure that we continue that in that spirit of collaboration, of coming together to solve community problems in a way that is respectful of all of the individuals and makes the best use of the resources within the community.
Great, thank you, Carrie. Tedra, this is a question that's kind of on the same topic, but it gets to the politicization of this issue. Is there an ad to address Elise telling everyone that Tedra doesn't like police or support police? It's a very strong ad. She's standing with a group of officers. She's saying she's endorsed by New York State Police, Border Patrol, local police, etc.
Well, first and foremost, many of you may or may not know this, I don't know. I started my career in the New York State prison system, working side by side with law enforcement. I actually speak Spanish, and I translated for security. So Elise Stefanik says a lot of things. Most of them at this point are not true. And so we're going to keep running the campaign and talking about the things that actually Kimberly and Carrie have been talking about. I don't support defunding the police. I do, however, support banning things like chokeholds and strangleholds and no-knock warrants. I do support the duty to intervene and de-escalation, and supporting officers who are working in our communities. I can speak to this and sort of following up what Carrie and Kimberly have said on a personal level. I have a nephew who is schizophrenic, and my sister was terrified that the police officer would arrive and not understand that my nephew was a danger to himself more than a danger to others. And I think this is where mental health providers, substance use experts can support our police officers, can help with the training. So we are funding our officers and our police departments, our security folks, and we're also supporting the people who support them. It is all about creating a safe community. I think Carrie and Kimberly spoke to it.
Great, thank you, Tedra. All right, we have about 10 minutes left for Q&A, so I'm gonna try to get to as many of these as we can. We won't get to all of them, but let me try to do this. Could you each very briefly give us an idea of the ways you would suggest volunteers can help you get elected? Kimberly, you want to start?
Sure. Now is the time, if you haven't already, to write a letter to the editor. I personally need both pro about what I've done, and also a lot of people don't know the votes that Dan has taken. I've been in, I was in Queensbury a couple of weeks ago, Dan's backyard, and when I spoke to the group there and gave 6, 8, or 10 of Dan's worst votes, people were shocked. They just didn't know. I get a lot of Dan's a nice guy, maybe, but you know, when you look at those 2 votes that I just talked about, the fact that he voted against women's reproductive rights, he voted against gender, he voted not to require, if we're talking about law enforcement to give medical or mental health intervention at a scene. He voted against COVID-safe primary elections. There are lots of votes that he has taken that people just aren't aware of, and I certainly can send people lists. So phone banking, we all need, we're all doing them, and we are doing no contact lit drops like Alan and several people here did this weekend, because it's about name recognition. But the #1 thing that we all need is for people to get to the polls. We need people to vote. When the turnout is high, we're all going to win. If the turnout is low, it's going to be a problem. So we need to make sure that if you can commit to getting 10 people to make sure that they vote, and getting your friends to commit to getting 10 people to vote, then you are going to have this, you know, great team of women leaders. But we need that help. We need to make sure that people know who we are, what we stand for, and to get people to actually vote on election day or through absentee or early voting.
Thank you. Tedra, anything you would add?
Sure. I see him on here. I'm going to introduce you to David. David, can you take yourself off there or put your video on? Well, you can see David Sperry is here. We have a new staff member, a GOTV, a staff member. There he is. He's waving at you. Can you see him?
Hi, David.
And we let David, do you want to take this one on our end?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for giving me the opportunity to speak here. Really our #1 priority is making sure that everyone is getting a volunteer call. A lot of you have probably received them from our fantastic field team. We've got 5 really, really hardworking guys and girls down there on the field every night, cranking out calls. But you can go directly to Tedra's website and find a way to volunteer with us. We're making phone calls using a dialer, which makes it really easy. It's not like just calling through paper lists where, you know, you might talk to 1 person out of 100. We've got a device that allows you to talk to a person every time every time that there's a phone, you're going to talk with somebody. So it's infinitely faster. It's infinitely more impactful. And we're looking for people who can make calls for a few hours with us. The more people that we have, the faster that works. So you can talk to probably 100 people in the time that you normally would have talked to a few dozen or a dozen. So those opportunities you can look up at the website for Tetra, and we would love to have your support and your help, because that is really the way to win this.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Carrie.
Thank you so much. I'll be very brief. A number of you are already helping us with our absentee voter contact, and we'll also be doing similar outreach to independent voters. If you want to volunteer, Chris and Emma are on the phone or on the Zoom with us, and you can send an email to carriewoerner2020@gmail.com, and they will hook you up with a way to help us with those voter outreach. We will also be doing some texting, and that is a pretty easy thing. It's done with an automatic texter. We just need our human being hitting the button. And we'll probably participate in some phone banking as well. Although as the years go by, it gets harder and harder to do phone banking. We all know, we don't answer phones that we don't know the number. And so we're trying to be more creative about how we do that. I will be out walking neighborhoods. So if you want to stretch your legs and go walking with me, happy to have the company. And again, Carrie Woerner 2020 at gmail.com. And we'll be happy to take any or all of your help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. And I would also call your attention to the chat where Carol Kerr has just posted the websites for all 3 candidates. And I find it interesting that not one of you asked for money, but you can donate to the campaigns. It's always a welcome thing. Always good. So,
Well,
thank you
Carrie
for
and I
posting
have
that,
a
Carol.
cutoff on Monday, and Tedra's got one on the 30th. So yes, our financial disclosures are coming up really soon.
Right.
And
right,
I think at this point, right, it's all hands on deck, and it also is, we're not going to be knocking on doors, we've decided to use the dialer. We've made over 2.2 million calls, over 300,000 texts, but it does cost, and that has changed. COVID has changed sort of how we reached folks. We've decided to reach folks at their homes. That's where you come in. But also now it's all about communication and making sure we're on TV. I mean, somebody asked a question about ads. So all of you, many of you have been, I know, with me for a really long time, and certainly with Carrie for a very long time, and have been so supportive financially. My mother had a dish called Chicken Surprise. When the chicken, I'll be surprised. So I always say to people, everything you can do or anything you can do whenever you can do it, that would be great. That's how we've gotten here. It isn't just about the, large donors. I'm not taking corporate money, and we can dig down into why that's so important. But, I'm here for healthcare. Elise Stefanik has taken hundreds of thousands of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry and the insurance companies. They fuel her campaign, and then she votes their way. So it's really crucially important to have those dollars from you, because you're the people that we're going to be representing. So I'll just put that pitch in.
Thank you. Thank you all. We're starting to run out of time, so I'm going to ask one more question to all of you that is particularly relevant to Washington County and all of the other rural districts in District 21. And I'd like to get your policy plans to support local undocumented migrant farm worker community members, especially as we navigate COVID-19. That's a very interesting, provocative question. Good place to end. So Kimberly, do you want to start?
How about I finish for once?
How about you finish for once? Let me give that one to Carrie because of your work with the farm workers and on the Ag Committee in the state legislature. This one seems to be right up your alley.
I think that the challenge for the farm workers who are undocumented is frankly a challenge that our Congress needs to take up.
Right.
This has been a problem that has existed for really since Reagan did his program back in the 80s, and it is well past time for the federal government to recognize that they have to modernize our immigration policies. And it isn't the state's responsibility to provide. We don't control immigration. It's really not our responsibility. It is the federal government's responsibility, and it is past time for them to do it. And I think all of us need to be leaning on the federal government to update their programs and policies, to have to recognize that farmers need laborers, and this is a population of people who are willing to do the hard work that it takes to work on a farm, and we should be grateful to them for that, and we should recognize that with a modernization of our immigration policies. But that's really up to the federal government to do.
Thank you, Carrie. Which sounds like a perfect tee up for Tedra.
Alan, we can't hear you.
Looks like Tedra's ready.
Alan, so I'll take it because I think everyone's looking at me. And you're right, Carrie's right. We need elected representatives in Washington who will actually get something done. One of the things that is really crucially important is child separation. So I'm just going to put that out there, that people are crossing the border. I do not support child separation in any way. And I don't know if you know this, but Elise Stefanik voted against providing clean water and to families and children who were separated. So we'll leave it at that. So we need federal immigration reform. I agree with Carrie. We also need to get rid of the red tape. So there have been some farm legislation that has passed, worker farm legislation. The problem is the red tape. So in the case of folks who are working in fruits and vegetables, the problem is by the time people try to do the application, pay for the application, get it through the red tape, the season is over. And that's one of the root causes. So again, it is an issue. Elise Stefanik's been in Congress for 6 years, and we have not had meaningful immigration legislation passed. And they need to be held accountable for that. I want to follow up and just say, this district, it's not just about farming. We have folks who go to school here, who work in our hospitals here, who are part of our tourism industry here. So immigration reform is crucially needed on many levels, and they are tied, as Carrie said, to the economy and to the livelihood of the people in this district.
So I will jump in, and Alan, we still can't hear you, so just so you know. So the issue here, as Carrie said, it is a federal issue. We cannot, and nor should we, round up 10 million undocumented people who are here, especially our dreamers who came here as children under no power of their own. Most of them, this is their only country that they have ever known. It's also interesting to look at the fact that most of the jobs that undocumented, certainly in our agricultural industries, but most people are, what we learned during COVID, are considered essential workers. So, you can't have it both ways. You can't demonize because people don't have their citizenship, but these are the jobs that people don't like to say it, but some Americans just won't do. And so we have to value that. A lot of people also don't understand that a lot of undocumented people actually do pay taxes. When I was doing research on this a couple of months ago, the latest numbers I could find in New York State is undocumented people paid $1.4 billion in taxes. Most people do not know that. They want to be here, and so it is up to our federal government to make that happen, make the path to citizenship a reality.
Thank you. Can we hear it?
Okay, I came to Mary Lou's computer because I don't know what happened with my sound. But I'm done anyway. Sarah, I'm about to turn it back to you to get into the wrap up. So I'll just go back in my own place.
Okay. All right, listen, thank you very much. I want to thank Carrie, Kimberly, and Tedra. A lot of you may not be aware, but each of these women has been a dedicated public servant. They've all served in office. They've all been elected several times to those offices. And I've had the pleasure of watching them work. And I know a little bit about the treasurer's job in a county because I served on a county legislature. And it's an amazing position. We need people like Kimberly in the Senate. We need Carrie to go back. We need Carrie in the Assembly. Carrie works for her constituents. How many bills have you authored and gotten passed, Carrie?
I think we're up around 30.
Yeah, authored and passed in what, 6 years?
Yep.
That's amazing. And Tedra, I had a chance to get to know Tedra really closely for the few months that I was involved with the congressional race, and I knew from day one that she was the candidate that was going to get to this point. I just had my little magic wand out, and I knew, or I just knew she was going to get to this point. And I've seen all of these women work, and we need these women in office. They need to be in office. So Kimberly's right. Talk to your family members, talk to your friends. Getting out the vote is more important than ever. And I believe that it's going to be a a huge turnout because that happened with the schools this past spring. People turned out. So we need to get everybody out. So I want to thank Carrie, Kimberly, and Tedra because you've given so much time. And I would be willing to bet that you're all rather tired, so we won't stay here too much longer. And I want to especially thank the participants because this is how we get to know our candidates. And in many ways, this Zoom is more intimate than the bigger town halls and things of that nature because we get to look at everyone's face, and I think that's great. Anyway, I thank you. And Carol, can you just tell us the dates of the next 2 virtual halls and who's town halls and who's going to be in those? Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
I think we're going to give each of the candidates another minute or two to
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
but
Yep,
that's
you're
all,
absolutely
so
right.
let's do that and then I'll give the dates.
Okay, yep, you're absolutely right. So I wasn't reading my schedule. Kimberly, you do get to go first on this.
That's fine.
Okay.
So thanks everyone again for taking the time out. I really appreciate it. You know, I'm here, and I think all of us are here to serve the public. We want to make the world a better place. We want to make the North Country a better place. When you ask my opponent why he is running for office, he has said, well, it's just the next logical step. Just a few weeks ago, he said, well, that's what you do. You go from the Assembly to the Senate. That's not a good answer. We shouldn't be in politics to have a job. We should be here to make people's lives better. And, you know, that's what I grew up, the example I have from my family. When I first met Melissa, I talked about my entire family are firefighters and AEMTs. My dad is going to celebrate his 55th year being a volunteer fire department member, chief and commissioner. I didn't take the fire department route. I went into Kiwanis, which is helping children. I've served over 20 years at the local, state, and international level. I was one of 62 people in the world to try to promote the benefits of Kiwanis and what we do to improve the lives of children. I was the head of New York State for the Eliminate Project, which is our worldwide service project ending maternal and neonatal tetanus, and was charged with raising $1.8 million. And we are in our last few months of that, and we're less than $200,000 from that goal. So really proud of that. And I think it says a lot. Dan is, you know, boasting about his law enforcement union endorsements. Just so you know, if you are asked by anyone, 2 out of those 3 unions did not even give me the courtesy of applying for those endorsements, even though I asked to be given that chance. So when you look at all of the other unions, labor, trade, healthcare, and municipal employees, I have almost all of those other ones. And I think that's really important that workers come together and know that I will fight for their rights, because when unions fight successfully, all employees, all workers' lives improve. And so that's really important to me. So I just want to thank everyone again for taking the time to learn a little bit more about all of us. And this is a great, hardworking group of ladies, and I would be honored to have your vote and be your next state senator to do the work that needs to be done.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thanks.
Tedra.
Well, I want to say thank you again. Thank you to so many of you for being on this path with me. I think I pretty much recognize everybody. There are a couple new faces, but I want to thank you. I just want to tell you, I like to end with this, and some of you have probably heard this before, but in 2019, everyone calls it an off year, but for those of us like me who kept running, it wasn't quite an off year. But I was able to do a little bit of work, and I was able to work with hospice. And I go into organizations and I help them do what they do better. And I was able to care for my mother in 2009 and 2010 when through hospice. And then I served on the hospice board. So it's always been an organization that's near and dear to me. So in 2019, I was able to work with hospice, and on my last day of working with them for a whole year, their staff and their organization and helping them in St. Lawrence County do what they do better, I picked up a little card from the Office of Mental Health, New York State Office of Mental Health, with a motivational saying on it. And the saying is, these mountains that you are carrying, you were only supposed to climb. These mountains that you are carrying, you were only supposed to climb. When we look at our communities, people are carrying such heavy burdens. And this is why Kimberly and Carrie and I are running. It is to remind them that they don't have to carry those burdens. And it is to remind them that no matter what mountain they are climbing, they are not alone. That those of us who are elected should be there and will be there to help them every step of the way. So again, I want to circle back to the very beginning. I know what it's like to fight for my kid. I know what it's like to fight for my family and my community, and I'm going to do that in Washington. So I want to thank you so much. I would be honored, of course, to have your help in the next 41 days. Tomorrow is 40. I cross off every day. But we are in the final sprint. And so everything that you can do really will get us through this final sprint. And I want to say thank you again, and stay safe and well. And I'll pass it along, I guess, to Carrie.
Thank you, Tedra. Carrie?
Thank you so much. So 6 years ago, on the week before Election Day, the then supervisor of the town of Salem said to me, will you come out and have a cup of coffee with me? So I went out and I had a cup of coffee with Seth. And he said, I want you to promise me that if you're elected, we're going to see you, that you're actually going to come back here. And I said, Seth, I promise you that if I am elected to the state assembly, you will think that I live in the town of Salem. And I have to say that that has been a guide star for me as I've gone through the last 6 years, is that I want each community to feel like I'm a member of their community. So that when I think about what do we need to do to make things better in Salem, in Argyle, in Greenwich, in Hartford, in Jackson, I do that with the knowledge of what those communities need, because I've been there, I've seen it, I've heard it. So when we talk about the need for more healthcare providers in Washington County, when we talk about the fact that there's no dentists, there's no primary care, there's no pediatricians, there's no OBGYN, it's because I've been there and I've seen it and I've talked to the people that affects. When we talk about telemedicine and how that can help, I've sat in the Greenwich Library parking lot in order to get a broadband signal. I know that all of those things which could make the healthcare situation better are limited because, frankly, we just don't have good broadband, and the satellite services and the wireless service, the corn gets too high in August and the signal gets disturbed, and what you had in February, you don't have in August. And I've been there and I know it. That remains my commitment to each of you in Washington County, to the communities that you are part of, that I am part of your community, that I'm there, I'm in the community. I spend time on your main streets. I spend time at your community organizations. I'm at the pancake breakfast, not because I love pancakes, which I do, not because I love chicken dinners, which I do, but because it gives you an opportunity to spend time with me, to have a conversation about what's going on in your life, and that all of those things together build my understanding of what we need to do to make life better for the people who work so hard every single day of their lives just to get by. And so that's my commitment to you, is that if you support my reelection, if you return me to office, I will be part of your community each and every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. Three very remarkable women. Carol, do you want to fill us in on the next couple of?
Yes, we are so blessed in this county to have one congressional candidate, 2 Senate districts, and 3 assembly districts. So in order to give everyone equal time. Next Wednesday night, Claudia Bramer, who is running for assembly in the district north of us, so it's the northern half of Washington County, Essex County, Warren County, and a couple of towns, I think, in Saratoga County. She and Kimberly are coming back. That will be 7 o'clock next Wednesday night, September 30th. And then we have Patrick Nelson, who is running for Senate, State Senate, and he has the two towns of Easton and Cambridge. And we have Brittany Vogel, who is running for Assembly, and she has the two towns of Cambridge and White Creek. And it's taken me a long time to memorize all this, but they are going to be here on October 12th for another town hall. So even if you're not in their districts, they're terrific people and you should come out and support them. So thank you all for coming out this evening. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Alan, do you want any quick words to the good? Whoops.
Is this working? No? Okay.
Okay, forget it. All right. Anyway, listen, I don't need to say anymore. We have 3 very impressive women here, and we need to get them in office. So do everything you possibly can to make sure that happens. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for showing up tonight. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
you.
Good night, everybody.